7 Dark Vatican Crimes That Will Shock You. Incontestably, the Vatican is the most powerful religious organization in the world. The Catholic Church has members in almost all countries under the sky, yet this is also the most cruel institution ever to exist. As the Bible says in Revelation 17:6, the woman, which is the Roman Catholic Church, is drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyr. Sadly, very few members of the Church are aware of those monstrous crimes committed by the Vatican throughout history. The video is not to attack our beloved brothers and sisters in the Catholic Church. In fact, most of those martyrs we will mention in the video were Catholics who protested against the abuse of the popes, and decided to follow what the Bible says instead of what the Vatican said. They were called heretics and persecuted. Before I continue, please like the video and subscribe to the channel to help us establish our community on YouTube. Remember to hit the bell icon for notifications of new videos. Discover 7 of the darkest crimes committed by the Vatican. 7. The Duplex Orphans. Duplex Orphans is the name given to thousands of so-called orphaned children who were falsely declared mentally ill by the Quebec government, in cooperation with the Roman Catholic Church, which managed the orphanages and confined psychiatric institutions from 1940 to 1970. The Roman Catholic Church has developed a strategy to obtain federal grants for thousands of children, most of whom become orphaned by being forcibly removed from their single mothers. All of these orphans will be baptized Duplex Orphans because it coincides with the time when Maurice Duplessis was Premier of Quebec. Many times those innocent children who have been removed from their single mothers were beaten, sexually assaulted, and even killed as a result of massacre. 7 religious orders were involved: the Sisters of Providence, the Sisters of Mercy, the Grey Nuns of Montreal, the Sisters of Charity of Quebec, the Little Franciscans of Mary, the Brothers of Notre Dame de la Miséricorde, and the Brothers of Charity. As of today, the Duplex Orphans case remains the most important case of child abuse in Canadian history. 6. Magdalene Asylums. Magdalene Asylums, commonly known in Ireland under the terms of Magdalene Laundries, refers to a group of Catholic institutions from 18th to the late 20th centuries designed to rehabilitate fallen women and promiscuous women. The term fallen women was used by the Roman Catholic Church to designate women who were accused of working in prostitution or having casual sex frequently with different partners, or being indiscriminate in the choice of sexual partners. The first asylum like that was located on Leeson Street in Dublin, Ireland, and was founded on June 11, 1765, by Lady Arabella Denny for Protestant girls. Under religious cover, these institutions embodied abuse and slavery. From 1922 to 1996, about 10,000 young women declared rejected by society by the Church were locked up there. These adolescents were often placed in these institutions where they were forced to work under the direction of nuns. Several reliable estimations indicate about 30,000 women were forced to stay there against their will, where they were abused and worked for years with no pay. Some of them were forced to have sex in a cold climate. It is also believed that women who tried to escape or refused to obey were murdered. In 1993, a mass grave containing 155 corpses was discovered at the grounds of a former convent in Dublin. The last convent of the Magdalene in Ireland was closed on September 25, 1996. 5. Spain's Stolen Children. Spain's stolen children is another sad event that occurred in the 1940s and 1980s during the military regime led by Francisco Franco. More than 30,000 children, whose fathers were either in jail or had been assassinated by Franquist troops during the Spanish Civil War and Franquist Spain, were taken from their mothers, for ideological reasons, based on the controversial thesis of a psychiatrist, himself close to Franco, Dr. Antonio Vallejo Noguera. Later, children of Republican families were taken then placed in Frankist families to avoid their contamination and degeneration with their Republican families that were considered an inferior race. This practice, almost systematic, takes place with the complicity of the hospital staff under the joint aegis of various authorities of the Roman Catholic Church. The primary objective behind the barbaric action is that Francisco Franco wanted to purify Spain of undesirable parents by stealing their babies. According to the Catholic and Diet of Francisco Franco leaders, Republican children cannot remain with their birth mothers beyond 3 years. After abduction, these children are then taken over by a Catholic institution that inculcates them an ideology very opposite to that of their parents, and most of those innocent children were subject of child trafficking and illegal adoption. Even after the death of Francisco Franco in 1975, the Catholic Church continued to rule the Spanish social services and largely continued the child kidnappings until 1987, where the scheme fully ended. However, most great modern historians state that the actual number of these abductions could even reach 300,000 victims. Some say about 15% of children adopted in Spain between 1960 and 1987 were arbitrarily abducted from their parents. 4. Prostitute rings, sodomy, pedophilia, and other abominations. The Catholic Church has been known since the end of the 20th century for many sodomy and sexual abuse cases against minors committed by priests and their religious leaders. Some of these cases have been brought to justice, but others have been covered up or suppressed by the church hierarchy. It is therefore not possible to list all these dark cases in this video. We see a few cases that have been registered in the United States only. Subscribe for the upcoming release of a video covering the cases in other countries, like Canada, Australia, France, Ireland, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Austria, Switzerland, and Norway. The first reported cases of crimes against children in the Catholic Church in the United States appear in the end of the 1980s. High-profile trials such as that in 1993 of the priest Edward A. Pipala, convicted of rape on a dozen young boys, helping to give a voice to some victims. Soon hundreds come out of their silence to let the world know of the criminal activities of the priests. In February 2002, the scandal of sexual abuse by American priests against minors bursts in the Diocese of Boston. 24 diocesan priests are accused of pedophilia, abnormal or unnatural sexual attraction of an adult towards children. In 2004, the John Jay Report, an independent study by the John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York, released by the U.S. Catholic Church, estimated at 4,400 the number of priests accused of sexual abuse of minors in the U.S. between 1950 and 2002, which represent 4% of all 110,000 priests in office during that period. The number of child victims of such abuse is estimated at 11,000, 67% aged between 11 and 17 years. The victims have received compensation totaling $2 billion. In late March 2010, the New York Times draws attention to the case of Father Lawrence Murphy, who committed numerous sexual abuses on minors in the years 1950 to 1974. His file was sent to Rome in 1996, but the leaders did not treat the case with sufficient rigor, although the Vatican and the Italian daily newspaper Avignon considered the accusation as erroneous interpretation. 3. The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Day. The Massacre of St. Bartholomew took place on August 24, 1572, the day of St. Bartholomew, and prolonged for several days in the capital, and then spread to more than 20 provincial towns during the following weeks. This is a tragic and sad episode in the religious wars characterized by barbaric attacks from the ultra-Catholic leaders against the Protestants. During the massacre, countless of Protestant members and leaders, including noble Gaspard de Coligny, were cruelly executed. Three lords, the Duke of Guise, the Duke of Aumale, and half-brother of King Henry, Grand Prior of France, at the head of a group of Catholic Swiss mercenaries, were in charge of the massacre. They were determined to exterminate all the Protestants at the very first signal. It was a bloody night for the innocent reformers who wanted to serve God according to the Bible and their conscience. Coligny was killed in his bed with a dagger by Besme, Charles Dienowitz. His body was thrown out the window, castrated, removed his testicles, and decapitated in the courtyard, again by Besme. The body was then brought to Siena before being dragged through the streets and hanged on the gallows of Montfaucon, execution by hanging, where it was exhibited hung upside down. It was an interminable night for the Protestants, thousands killed by Catholics. 2. The Massacre of Marindol. The Massacre of Marindol is a cruel event carried out against Protestants of the Evangelical Church of Vaud by the Catholic Church together with King Francis I. The Waldensians, also known as Waldenses or Vaudois, who joined the Protestant religion after being tired of the Catholic Church abuses, developed their evangelical mission in Provence, in the Luberon and Piedmont, with relations with the Protestants of Bohemia and Switzerland. In 1540, because they refused to return to the Catholic Church, the Vaudois were subject of a conviction by the Edict of Marindol, a formal declaration that would lead to the massacre of 3,000 people in 5 days, devastation of 24 villages of Luberon, including that of Marindol in spring of 1545, and sentence of 670 Protestants to the galleys of Marseille. The edict condemned by absentia all heretics to be burned, and ordered all the villages of Marindol, Cabrerias de Igas, and other places that were a safe refuge for the heretics, to be destroyed, the houses razed to their foundations, caves and other underground areas that were their dwelling places demolished, forests cut, fruit trees uprooted, the leaders and main rebels executed, and their wives and children banned for life from these places. To convince the king, the Catholic leaders stated the Vaudois occupied strong positions among the Alps. They were so numerous that they could put under arms up to 15,000 men. They correspond with the Swiss, and in case of foreign war, they can easily take over control of Aix and Marseille. The Waldenses were amnestied and allowed to live in their place. Eager to shed blood, those church leaders asked the king to revoke, for the salvation of his soul, the amnesty he had granted to the Vaudois of Marindol. Francis I gave in and wrote on January 1st, 1545, to the Parliament of Provence to implement the judgment. The leaders of the Catholic Church, along with the royalty, commanded that the country of Provence be entirely depopulated and cleansed of such deceivers, the peaceful Protestants. The results? Thousands of innocent Protestants were massacred in 5 days. Number 1. The Croatian Holocaust. The Holocaust in the independent state of Croatia. The Croatian Holocaust is a less-known genocide of Jews and other ethnic minorities during World War II within the independent state of Croatia, which was led by the Ustaše regime, a Croatian fascist movement that was ultra-conservative Catholicism and racism. In 1941, after occupation of Yugoslavia by the Axis alliance, Germany, Italy, and Japan, a new fascist government was formed and called the Independent State of Croatia. Although claimed to be independent, the regime was in fact a Nazi puppet state, headed by the dictator Ante Pavelić. To show his appreciation to the new oppressor, the Catholic Archbishop Aloysius Stepinac held a banquet during which he proclaimed Ante Pavelić God's hand at work. The celebration is not over yet. Pope Pius XII cordially received the bloodthirsty dictator, although he was told about a recent barbaric crime committed by Ante Pavelić by locking hundreds of Serbians inside a Orthodox church and burning the building to the ground. An advisor of Ante Pavelić advised him to destroy Croatia's Serbian population by killing 1/3, expelling the other third, and assimilating the remaining third. The advice was well appreciated by the Ustaza and the Catholic Church leaders. It is reported that at Jasenovac camp, a former priest-student named Peter Brzica won a contest by cutting the throats of 1,360 individuals in a single night. In the following year, in 1942, other attacks were conducted by Catholic priests against Serbs and Jews, leading to the deaths of thousands of innocents. During the Holocaust, most of the Jews were executed in concentration camps such as Jasenovac and others in Yugoslavia, which were run by Catholic priests. Those who were not killed in Croatia were turned over by the Ustaze for execution in Nazi Germany. According to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum lists, 32,000 Jews with 12,000 to 20,000 Jews killed at Jasenovac system of camps, at least 25,000 Roma, or virtually the entire Roma population in the state of Croatia, and between 320,000 to 340,000 Serbs, most killed by the Ustaša authorities. Thank you for watching to the end. Please like the video and share it with your friends. Remember to subscribe to the channel to help us establish our presence on YouTube.